Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today I just wanted to show off a little bit more strategy in a 1v1 scenario. This is a recording. I'd previously gotten some comments on how do I use war factories. And war factories being one of the newest units to the game, one of the most talked about units, and quite the highlight in the last tournament that we were casting. I figured I'd kind of show you guys how I do it. Now don't expect me to be playing a lot of war factories early. I prefer to build around the war factory with it in mind throughout the majority of the game, so that way I can have my opponent building for anti-synergy, i.e. I don't want my opponent to be placing down things like melting points, high-level snipers, or Phoenix units, or a lot of steel balls. So just things that won't really chunk the war factory's HP too quickly. Nor do I want them to have a lot of chaff. So really, what does that leave them? It leaves them with a lot of medium style units, things like arc lights, tanks, storm callers, everything that's really in that 200 range when you deploy a unit, minus Phoenix and other flyer units, because war factories can't shoot up. So just having those kind of heavier style units that war factories perform very well against. I am playing against a speed specialist. I am a giant specialist, so I want to unlock the war factory early and be able to play it whenever I want to, as well as just have the ability to transition quickly towards giants in order to support my war factory. So war factories tend to work quite well with Vulcans and with melting points. The reason I say Vulcans is that they can very quickly execute enemy chaff units, and of course melting points are great against other giant units that might tie up your war factory for a long period of time. You really want it shooting at those medium style units as much as possible. I did end up picking up the Assault Fang there. I love to pair Fang with war factories and other giant units. Also with Assault Fang, you are now quick enough, your little Fang are now quick enough to dodge under the missiles of a Stormcaller barrage. If you want to counter fast units with Stormcallers, align them in this pattern. That way, once the first missile goes off, the other units kind of bunch up, which allow the missiles to sometimes hit faster units. So a little bit of thought there. I did pick up a couple of snipers here just because I saw that he had quite a few medium style units as well, and I kind of want to discourage him from going a little too heavily into chaff units. So I'll have to pick up some chaff killers now, and obviously him picking up some crawlers really does make a difference. I would say that crawlers are significantly better than Fang in the early game. Of course, as the game continues, Fang tend to become the greater threat just because their upgrades are slightly better. Now, I'm a huge fan of the Amp Core, as well as Heavy Armor. Heavy Armor I'd maybe put in like C or B tier. It's not bad, especially on heavier units, like I just unlocked a Vulcan. But the Amp Core is slightly more expensive, and it just does more, in my opinion. So I tend to like that. Something else that you'll see my opponent do quite a bit is play out a lot of deployables throughout this game. Picking up things like the smoke bomb, oil, fire, orbital bombardments. All of those things are great, and I would highly recommend that you pick up these cards. The reason I tend not to is I tend to play a longer, more economic game where I choose to allow myself to lose a round or two on purpose, so that way I can set up a slam dunk or a kind of death round where they might have 2,400 HP, but I can kill them in a single blow. In this case, I did unlock a Vulcan early. The Vulcan would just really help deal with this chaff, as well as not having a lot of upgraded units. I placed some crawlers on this flank, knowing that they would die, but look how many units it's drawn away. And this will allow my crawlers to get online. This will allow the rest of my units to really push into here without having that much threat. I didn't have a Vulcan on this flank, so I needed to keep these units away as long as possible. That way my Vulcan would be able to clean up on this flank and hopefully kill the enemy sniper or all the rest of the chaff units. That way my flyers could do the damage. At least that's what I was hoping for. And in this case, it pseudo worked out. That Arclight had just a little bit more range than I would have liked, was able to get in there and really take out a lot of my units quickly. It is what it is. Speed this up a little bit. Now, I'm actually a huge fan of the smoke as well as the oil, just because they are persistent. Being able to deploy something and have it last multiple rounds is great. If you play out the oil and then set it alight next turn, mwah, that is getting the most value out of it, so highly recommend. Enhancement module is great. I know that I'm going to be going a little bit heavier into the giants, so I'd like to be able to upgrade those giants whenever possible. I like to pair this with, of course, the recycle ability, field recovery, as well as the level up and skill specialist. If you can get those three things online, you can do things like recycle Phoenix after upgrading them, put the enhancement module on something else, and upgrade that. Let's say I'm trying to phase out my Phoenix and go heavier into Vulcan, or vice versa. It's generally better to do on a unit that's more expensive, but this way I can upgrade the Phoenix as they're still useful. If the Phoenix become useless, or let's say he just deploys a whole bunch of Mustang and my Phoenix just aren't going to cut it, I can pop it over here and vice versa. So it's just a way to kind of spread out your leveling without having to worry about the cost. I did sniff out, I saw that the orbital bombardment was a possibility, so I was like, where am I most likely to be bombarded on this flank? I also wanted to have a little bit of reach, because I thought if the orbital bombardment was available, my opponent would most likely take it and then shield up. So my plan was that he would bombard my center, which is pseudo happening. If he had chosen to, given my deployment pattern, in my opinion, it would have been better to bombard the center, because he still would have caught the Vulcan and my more important units, i.e. the snipers, but he chose to go this way. Totally fine. It is what it is. Missile was deployed here to take care of my crawlers. I was actually extremely happy about that. I was debating about recycling them, but having him actually kill off those crawlers with a missile, I couldn't have asked for more. A complete waste in my opinion, because those crawlers will still be there next turn, and my plan was already to recycle them, so having them gone is just fantastic. Now that I had my Vulcan here as well, I wasn't really worried about those crawlers coming in. In fact, as you saw, that Vulcan really dealt with those chaff units quite quickly, so I was happy about that. This is all about setting up that headbutt. I'm thinking, okay, the reach on these is really what's hurting me the most, and I don't really have a lot of punch. I could get some punch with some medium units, i.e. some Mustang or some tanks, just to deal a little bit more damage in the wave clear and soak up some shots, or I could not worry about it. My opponent picks up skill specialist here. It makes sense, he has a lot of skills. I grab the barrier just so that I have a permanent shield on this flank, and I grab some level 2 Stormcallers because I have a feeling he's going to shield up more, and the quicker I get rid of these things, the better. I don't really have a way to deal with this backline easily, i.e. I'm basically tying it down to snipers. So if I can kill this Arclight, all of these Arclights as quickly as possible, I'm very happy. Once again, my opponent deployed a missile on this flank. I was like, man, should I recycle these? Well, I mean, if he keeps deploying missiles, no. Like, that's fantastic. I'll keep letting that happen. The Stormcallers are doing a great job at providing me a bit of reach. I'm really just using the Vulcan now as HP sinks. I'm fine with them getting shot the heck, because now all of my chaff is starting to make it in. The Arclights are still focusing on my Vulcans. The snipers are focusing on my Vulcans to, a greater effect, but look at all these little Fang. Able to make it in here. They're going to be able to absorb shots from my Stormcallers. This is exactly what I was hoping to have come together. Now, I wasn't planning on actually winning this round, so I was a little surprised. I thought I would drop down, maybe lose about 400 or 500 points, and then deploy the Wear Factory as a big gotcha. But I was quite happy with winning as well. I mean, you can't hate winning, right? There's nothing wrong with that. I figured he'd probably pick up the incendiary bomb or giant hunter here. I was more interested in the charged ammo, just because I thought, you know what, that might help a little bit with kind of dispersing some effects. I've noticed that a lot of his units have some tech on them at this point. I don't think I have any tech to speak of. I now grab some shields on my Fang as my first tech choice. So having these guys kind of spreading out shots and weakening things is great. I wanted some more Fang here. I believe I deploy them in my back line. The plan is to go heavy into Fang and then grab a couple of war factories, either next turn or the turn after. Really, it's right before I'm about to die that I want to deploy them. I did not expect my opponent to go full hog here and grab the rapid resupply, fire, and I believe he also plays smoke. It's a little bit much in my opinion, but hey, I mean, this area is suddenly the death zone. And then I think he maxes this stuff out too. Yeah, there's 1, 2. Just gets a little cray-cray, which I'm into it. Like, he had a lot of extra cash. He can play out some more units and just really spends it all. So he's hoping to just win this round. At least this would be to me a death blow when I would spend all my money in that way. I don't think I can physically die. Jesus Christ, that was loud. I don't think I can physically die at this point, just because of the amount of HP that I have and the likelihood of me dealing damage to a lot of his units. So I thought this was kind of an overspend, but again, I'm perfectly okay with that. I want him spending as much cash as possible on random crap, you know. The other reason I gave these Stormcallers and not my level 2 Stormcallers the charged shot is that they might not kill everything that they hit. So in this case, they hit that sniper, they didn't kill it, and that means that the sniper had to force its way towards my Stormcallers, which is exactly what I wanted. When you're using your charged ammo, it's actually not a bad idea to give it to your weaker units, just because it kind of brings down enemy units towards their level. I was really hoping that the Stormcaller would sit in the smoke, but it didn't. Speed this up a bit. If you have a guess, it's going to be Stormcaller War, and my guys aren't very drunk, so that should help a bit. Blammo. Ooh, will I get it? Yes. Okay, so I won again, so this delayed my War Factory play, I believe, one more time. I'll grab the Photon Emission here. I believe he grabs the Giant Hunter, if memory serves. I'm like 99% sure he goes with Giant Hunter. Yeah, there it is. A great play on his part, because I already have 2 Giants, so if... I don't think Giant Hunter is a very strong card, I'm just slightly biased to it. If I go heavily into Giants, which I do now have my Fortress unlocked, it's not a bad play. I didn't want to really play out the Fortress here because I still thought dealing with chaff was my main problem. So I ended up grabbing some Wasps. I was looking around, he didn't have a huge amount of anti-air. In fact, most of the anti-air was tied up into these Fang and a couple of snipers. So I'm like, okay, he's got 4 snipers and these Fang will all die. I'm just going to try and overwhelm him with some numbers and put off getting out more War Factories. And the reason I keep putting off the War Factories is because then I can get more of them. You can fairly easily deal with 1 War Factory around round 5, round 6, because then you can just deploy Melting Point, and your opponent probably can't shield that Melting Point adequately enough in order for you to not kill the War Factory fairly quickly. But round 8 or 9, if you can deploy 2 or 3 War Factories at the same time, okay, all of a sudden the amount of HP you have on the field has skyrocketed, especially if you're deploying 1 or let's say 2 or 3 War Factories with a tech upgrade as well. You recycle a very expensive giant unit that has the enhancement module on it, or some very expensive Phoenix, and then hey, you have another $600 in the bank, so you deploy your 3 War Factories plus that Phoenix upgrade as well, or the tank upgrade, and now you're just spawning out so many extra units. It's insanity. So that's kind of what I was going for here. My little Wasps are doing great. I kind of abandoned the ground war, knowing that I wouldn't really last on it too well. So they're going to do their job. They're going to clean this up for me. Good little guys. Always be spotting. these quick tech changes. I don't think these wasps are going to do anything else this game. At least I didn't have that thought in my mind while I was playing this, because I was like, I'll win this round, delay again, give them a nice little cut. It's all about bringing that HP down into the danger zone. This is exactly where I want them. Around 1400, really 1500 HP. That way I can easily deliver the decisive blow. I end up getting the deployment, and I think I just brought those little wasps, or those these little guys home. I kind of felt bad for them. This is something that I do while I'm playing the game. I'd highly recommend that you don't do this, but I felt kind of sentimental for my crawlers because they just kept getting blown up, and also they were feeding XP to these arc lights. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to recycle them. I'll just bring them home, and if I need to, I'll recycle them and take somebody else. I gave my Fang an upgrade. I think this was a mistake on my part. I probably should have gone with the range enhancement if I was going to upgrade the Fang this round, which I don't think was the right choice, because the most likely answer to my Sudden Wasp aggression is Mustang. And having a whole bunch of Fang, level 1 Fang, even with shields and mechanical rage, the assault means that they have a lot less range, and these Mustang will just absolutely annihilate them. For some reason it won't let me click on the Mustang. There we go, 135 meters, so more than double the range on those Mustang, and these Fang have like paper skin, so yeah, they can absorb one little nick, but after that they're going to certainly die. Stormcallers have actually been performing very well throughout the game, dealing a lot of damage, which I really only have them to deal damage. Sure, they're getting a lot of kills on chaff, that's fine, but really the chaff is being dealt with by these Vulcans. I did give the Vulcans the attack upgrade, just so that way they can very quickly, like the moment the flame kisses a crawler, it kills it. I really highly rate that, as well as, let's say the Vulcan gets online against an arc light or something, it can just burn them off really quickly. So this is looking pretty grim. I did give my Phoenix the Quantum Reassembly, just because I figured they had a small screening in the form of those wasps. So if all of a sudden those wasps are the things dying, then my Phoenix might have a time to respawn. I don't know if it was the right play there either. I think it may have been better for me to actually transition into the War Factory at this turn. I mean, it's round 8 coming into round 9. Probably would have been more worth it. Super heavy armor is fantastic. Of course, you can't equip it on a War Factory, but I just love it. Opponent skips. The opponent is getting a lot more cash than me over time now because my Vulcan are dying. I decided to lean into it a little bit more because, again, although he has a lot of single point damage, if I can crack through it and just move forward, I'm going to be in a really good position. So I decided to go with 2 more Vulcan at the risk of him playing Melting Points. If he played Melting Points, I knew I was going to be in a kind of a bad position, especially because he has good anti-air, and my main focus at this point probably would have been Phoenix. So I was really hoping that he wouldn't expect me to grab extra Vulcan, because, you know, they're kind of not working out already, so why would I lean into them? That was my thought process. But 2 level 2 Vulcans, 1 with the super heavy armor. Hopefully it's just enough to allow my Stormcallers, to allow my Phoenix, even though I don't have many of them, just to pick off these arc lights and these marksmen. That's the dream anyways. It's kind of a bad dream. Oh, and I can move around these wasps. Highly recommend the jump drive. It is an amazing ability. Let's say I put 2 War Factories here, and one War Factory here, 1 War Factory here, and then I lined up a whole bunch of wasps. That just buys those War Factories a few extra seconds, as well as if it's spawning Phoenixes, those Phoenix now have cover. So being able to move your units, highly recommend it. It's great. Of course, now these Mustang did just get the anti-air, so any aerial play is, I don't want to say shut down, but becomes significantly less likely. I was kind of expecting to... My prediction for this round was to win or lose very softly. I still have 1300 HP, which is the danger zone, don't get me wrong, but I wasn't expecting to die. You know, I thought, okay, I probably have 1 or 2 more rounds. Unfortunately, my Phoenix did die there to like the very last Mustang. I was very frustrated by that while I was watching. Like, Jesus Christ, like one more shot and I would have made it. But I'm cleaning up a lot here. Luckily, the super heavy Vulcan just does a lot of damage. Like, able to clear out a lot of this, able to survive a ton of shots from these guys. And importantly, I'm killing off a lot of his deployable crap. Missile interceptors are great, don't get me wrong. I think they're a wonderful thing. Unfortunately, they can die. So the more of those I kill, the better I am. It's just money wasted for him. And he has a lot of missile interceptors at this point. I would have loved to have taken out most of those, but I was like, okay, this is it. I have to win this round. I don't really have any other choice. I don't think I wanted any of this crap. Yeah, I was like, I just need the cash. I've got $1,700. Time to play it. There's my War Factory. I could have played another one, but I was thinking to myself, is it better to have 2 War Factories at this point or 1 War Factory producing tanks? And I know what you guys are all probably saying in the comments. What the heck? You hate tank production. You know, you always talk that the tank production isn't very good on giant units and things. There's always an exception to every rule. And I don't, it's not that I dislike tank production, it's just that I don't use it very often. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to grab the tanks here because they can absorb a ton of damage, and importantly, they won't die to these Mustangs as easily. Yes, they'll get evaporated by the level 3 Mustangs with advanced firepower. You know, there's not really much I can do about that, but, you know, good enough. I was also thinking about where the positioning of this War Factory is best. I thought about putting it in the oil to intentionally allow it to play out more tanks, but then I realized I just need the HP sink. Like, I need this thing to get the crap kicked out of it. I want it to survive with like 10 HP if possible. And really, that's how I want most of my units to live through a battle. I don't care if my unit takes a crap ton of damage. As long as it doesn't die, I'm happy with that. Let your HP on every unit is a resource. Let it get the heck kicked out of it to breaking point. Just don't let it break. And trying to manage that on the battlefield is difficult. So here come the tanks. The tanks have a little bit of splash damage as well. They're absorbing a ton of shots for me right now. I think it took 2 shots from this arc light already, so definitely worth it. It's adding a lot of extra HP bars, and it's keeping my Phoenix safe. So my Phoenix on the left side are already dead, or sorry, on the right side, but they're able to jump over here to this guy on the left and hopefully respawn, which is exactly what I want. The right actually went significantly better than I thought it would. Once again, the War Factory is just taking a ton of damage for me. Some of these units are aggroing on it, which is fine. Here come my Phoenix reassembling in. Oh, no, I guess they died for good there. The quantum reassembly does take a lot longer than I would like it to. If it was like a second less, I think that'd be a good spot. But War Factory did exactly what I wanted it to do. Spawned in, gave me a ton of HP, but most importantly, gave me a lot of units that have some splash damage and can take a few shots for it. Because, of course, the War Factory can deal a lot of damage. So, that's how I play War Factories. Kind of a weird one, where the entire game I spent setting up for the idea of dealing this one blow in order to defeat the opponent. But hey, if you have a strategy, stick to it, think about it, and adapt. You know, I could have easily played more War Factories earlier in the game, but I saw he had Giant Hunter. I saw that he had a lot of units that could, I wouldn't say easily deal with the War Factory, but with this setup, I mean, talk about great supporting lines of fire, good amount of chaff, good amount of long-range units. I would have maybe buffed out this infantry a little bit more instead of going into more Mustang. Well, no, he didn't play a lot of Mustang. I've just found that tanks seem to perform a little bit better than arc lights, probably because there's more units. Having them be able to split off and get shot by different things and shoot at different things is quite useful, especially with things like the charged ammo or increased ammunition, though I would say that advanced firepower on Mustang is my favorite way to play it. But this flank was just so open. Like, I like the spearhead formation, but I could have placed the war factory, I believe, on this flank as well and been able to walk it in. So there you go. I hope this was helpful to some people. And if you like videos like this, please be sure to like and subscribe. I'd be really interested in doing some more viewer games. If you have viewer games that you'd like me to commentate, think about, and dissect, let me know. I'm sorry to those of you who did upload viewer games. Life and the army just got in the way, so I had to do a bunch of dumb shit. But I am back and hopefully here for a very long time. Anyways, guys, see you soon. Bye.